It is. It really is. Because now, and what state is he being held in right now? Do you know?
I believe
they keep moving him around.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's in Michigan, somewhere in there, but I'm not for sure. I'm really not for sure. But it's
see,
one
that's
of the,
what I was. Yeah. I was thinking it's one of those states where the medical marijuana is allowed. So he's in a prison where medical marijuana is something that the people in that state are able to participate in.
That's exactly right. Sort of, it's crazy, and the fact that they have equated each seed to that amount of cannabis is insane in the first place.
It is, and don't you think that the government looks really desperate and really silly to house him in a prison in a state where marijuana is free to smoke?
I know, and it's really the whole thing is bogus from the beginning. I'm really not surprised that they're that damn stupid, but the whole thing is, from the very beginning, the right for a person to smoke and use this herb, and that's what it is. It's an herb. And the right for people to use and smoke this herb is their God-given right, and they're in a law body in this land or all of the lands in the world that have any say-so in that. We are put here in this planet to decide for ourselves, not the DEA to decide, hey, no, you're not going to smoke this cannabis. You're going to be an alcoholic and drink this legal Jack Daniels that we've got out there for you. There's a lot of people that use this herb not only as medicinal, but they use it because it's safe. And it never has hurt anybody, never has put anybody in the hospital or caused anybody to be put in a casket, except for the only people who've been hurt are the ones that have been tangled up in this silly war on drugs and all this violence that we're seeing on the border. Every bit of that, it's all due to the DEA in this country.
Well, now, wait. There's been some other people who've been hurt by it. The oil industry, they were hurt in the pocketbook as long as this was legal. And, the pharmaceutical industry, they were hurt as long as they had to compete against marijuana.
That's right. The last episode we did on the Cannabis Corner, the actual title of it is The Winners and Losers of Legal Cannabis. And that's what I did. I went into a discussion on the losers and the winners from cannabis being legal. And it's very interesting, and it talks about, how the justice system themselves, every facet of it, they're going to become losers. The prison industrial complex that they built in America to house all the people they arrest for marijuana every year, those are going to be losers. And top on my list was the Drug Enforcement Agency, because they're all going to have to go out and get a real job now.
And you're right, it's going to be a ripple effect, because then there's a food industry that caters to the prisoners that are being housed, and then there's the people who make the clothes, and there's all that cheap labor that they're going to lose, that we're now going to have to start hiring Americans at a decent rate of pay that they can pay taxes on. Oh my gosh, sounds like a positive cycle to me.
Yeah, that's right. It's win-win for everybody, I'll tell you. The amount of jobs, just the fuel side of it, and the paper and plywood industries that'll open up if they... This is what amazes me the most about all of this. You're all these state legislatures, they're talking about all the revenues they're going to make on the marijuana sales and all the people using cannabis and stuff, but they don't seem to realize that the price structure right now that you have to pay for cannabis around the world, it's a black market price. That price is going to fall off the shelf completely once they legalize it. And that's what people have to understand, that cannabis that they're paying $20 a gram for right now, you're going to be able to buy these varieties for $8 and $10 an ounce, and you'll be able to access all of these different varieties around the world, the really potent ones, because the cheaper Mexican varieties and things like that, those are the ones that they'll be growing to use for the products, and we'll have the stronger varieties for the for the smoking and the medicinal use.
And that'll be nice, too, for states like Indiana when it finally happens, because here it's just like, do you want brown seeds and stems, or do you want green seeds and stems?
Exactly. And they get so caught up in this, this marijuana and people using marijuana and all, and they're talking about, all the tax revenue they're trying to, get off the marijuana smoke. They don't seem to realize that if you get the hemp industry growing, you could give the marijuana away. You wouldn't even have to worry about the tax revenue on sales of marijuana, because the hemp industry could be $1 trillion industry in this country if we played it right.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. We could be. We could actually be the strongest country again and be back to being the world power.
Yeah, and put people back to work.
Oh, yeah, and no dependency of foreign oil. Bingo.
None at all.
Win-win.
Like you had said at the beginning of your program, just 1 acre of hemp. I mean, look at we could produce 20 to 30 barrels of oil, and from that you could, just in 1 acre. I mean, it wouldn't take, hardly a state the size of Rhode Island to take care of our entire fuel needs in this country.
You could, and that blew my mind when Jack Hare pointed that out to me, and that's what that's when I thought back in '91, because ever since Jimmy Carter got in the White House and started wearing sweaters with the heat down, thought, well, we got to conserve and to get off of foreign oil. I thought, well, this is going to be a no-brainer. This is what's going to make the American public go, oh, we need to change this law.
I mean, to me, the very fact that we cut 50,000 trees down each week to print the Sunday paper when we could be printing this out of hemp, that in itself, solely by itself, across the board, there's nothing that smoking cannabis does that we should do something like that. I mean, it's just insane. Absolutely insane.
It is. And that's why I've always been stunned. That's exactly what Jack always felt when he and Captain Ed got their book out. He figured, number one, after a few people would read it, it would be boom. Everybody would go, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. We can save money, we can create jobs, we can and basically based on the fuel. Even when they went for the medical on Prop 215, Jack was going, no. Let's go for the fuel. That makes sense. Well, and I can honestly tell you, Carey, I still can't figure out why America hasn't gone, especially after the Black Sea that has been created for us by BC Corporation, why Americans aren't standing up and going, hey, we need to make this plant our fuel.
Well, it kind of makes you realize who actually is in control. And it's not, it's our government. But they're run by, interests, bigger than big oil, which has a play into it, big pharmaceutical, which has a play into it, big, international forests, the big plywood and paper producers, all of those are all entities that control our government, basically. And when you have, and the alcohol industry, I mean, my God, the top three people, who the top three donations come from for this partnership for a drug-free America? It comes the number one contributor is the alcohol industry. Number two is the cigarette industry, and number three is the pharmaceutical industry. That right there should tell America what's going on.
It should. Again, wake up. And, right now they've got us living from paycheck to paycheck, and then in between the two paychecks, when we start paying attention to them, they dazzle us with a rock show or a football game, and then when we're looking at the right hand, the left hand hits us in the back of the head. And it's very frustrating.
It's very frustrating. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, even though cannabis was illegal, even though actually from 1966 until the Controlled Substance Act came out with the lawsuit that Timothy Leary did, there really wasn't any laws against cannabis on the books per se, even though they were still enforcing it and still arresting people and all. But there was sort of a period there around 69, 70, 71, right in there, right when the Controlled Substance Act was actually being formulated and pushed through. But they really weren't there wasn't this big hard push for the users and stuff, that was going on. And of course Nixon had his little party. They tried to shut down the border and all, kind of like what they're trying to do today. And of course they failed miserably with that and realized, they were just, the people wanted it. This is something the people want. And even Nixon's own little cronies and all, they recommended decriminalization back then, 70 years ago. And here we got Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he passed this stupid bill here the other day that's going to take effect in January, but they still want to charge you. If you get caught with marijuana possession, they still want to charge you $100. And I say, why don't the cops sit up outside the package stores, and when somebody walks out with a 6-pack of beer or a bottle of Jack Daniels, why aren't they fined $100? At least that damn drug kills 500,000 people, the amount of people
even if they don't get in to a car and drive and kill somebody else and just sit at home and drink from the pancreas diseases and all that That alone kills that many people.
Well, and look at what the burden that puts on our society, the taxpayers, because a lot of those people are under Medicare and tax-covered insurance plans and stuff. So it does, it does debilitate society, and it does take away. And when that's the thing about when you have a substance illegal, you don't really get the truth of the matters of what this plant could actually offer. We know a lot of things about what the cannabis plant can do right now. I mean, have you ever heard anybody tell you something negative about smoking cannabis ever? I mean, have you ever heard anything other than the propaganda, of course? But I mean, the people who truly use it and all. You ever heard of them tell you, "Oh man, I'm not going to smoke that stuff anymore. That's terrible." Have you ever heard that from anybody?
No, but there is one negative thing that I did hear. Now, for the longest time, I was buying pot for like $25 an ounce, and then I was getting it for like, $75, for an ounce and so on. And then one day I called my dealer, and my dealer said it would be $35 an eighth. And I said, no, I think you misunderstood me. I said, I want a half. That's not what you charge for a half. He said, no, that's what we charge for an eighth. Now, that's something negative.
That's very negative. Well, it's very negative, and the fact that
price goes up.
Since the war on drugs really took a head of steam right there prior to right when Reagan came into office, and of course Bush Sr. And even though those periods really they weren't as hard on the marijuana smokers as the Clinton years were, during that Barry McCaffrey or whatever his name was, I can't remember, that drug czar under Clinton, we had record numbers of people going to jail for marijuana, and most of it was for possession. And
we did. Now, you mentioned Nixon and you mentioned Reagan, and I hope you don't think less of me, but I got a confession to make, Carey. My dad always told me that the best revenge is to outlive your enemies, and now, I hope you don't think less of me, but when I heard on both occasions that these men had passed away, the very first thing I said out loud was, the world is a better place. Thank God they're dead. So I certainly hope you don't think less of me for that.
I despise both of them. I mean, you hear all these neocon Republicans, you hear that's all they talk about is how great Reagan was, and there may have been a few things in his presidency that he did that were probably worthwhile, but the other things he did that didn't come to light, that him and Bush Sr. were involved in and all, and the very fact that they were arresting people for marijuana and stuff when you had the things going on that they were involved in, I mean, it's
no kidding. Flying the cocaine out of Arkansas and bringing arms back into the country at a time when Clinton was the governor of Arkansas. People overlooked that. And when Perot and Bush and Clinton all got into that debate about whatever they were going to debate, everything came up but the Iran-Contra affair. And that's because Clinton knew he was going to get the White House. That was his payoff for keeping his mouth shut about what George H. was up to.
Well,
and that's why Hillary didn't leave Bill, because she knew she was going to be the first lady.
And look at Noriega. I mean, if there ever was a setup guy, I mean, and he's in the prison now, and he was guaranteed immunity from them, just to use Panama as the go-between. And they promised him, look, you just close your eyes to all of this, and we promise you won't ever be prosecuted. Well, when push came to shove, guess who got the finger pointed at him and is still sitting in jail today? And that's Manuel Noriega. And I didn't even like the fellow. I'm sure he was a pretty ruthless guy from what I hear down in Panama and all, but he was set up by our government. And it was so they could carry on this illegal activity that they were doing. But this is, the very fact that all that was going on and they arrest people for cannabis is just beyond me. I don't even understand it at all. It just
I don't either. Now I want to break in here and I want to remind, we got another caller joining us here in just a second, and I want to remind people to call 604-669-9069. You can take Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and give a donation to the Marc Emery and Jodi Emery Money Bomb. As of now, they've raised over $16,000 to help get Marc Emery back into the country. Go to CannabisCulture.com. They're live there now. They're streaming live video. You can bounce back and forth between their broadcast and ours. Jodi will be joining us later in this broadcast to send her love when she gets a chance. That is for sure.